welcome to the news update in AFRICUNIA television, bringing you updates around the world from our studio in the nation's commercial capital, Lagos, Nigeria. I am Deborah Ezeh, and many thanks for joining me. We begin with stories from Nigeria. President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday accused the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, of being complicit in corruption in the tertiary education sector in the country. Now, this came on a day Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, said President Buhari has accepted the report on the engagement of members of the House with the Academic Staff Union of Universities on how to resolve the ongoing strike by the union. This is even as the federal government approved the registration of two rival groups to ASUU, the Congress of University Academics, CONVOY, and the National Association of Medical and Dental Academics, NAMDA, in what appears an attempt to break the ranks of striking ASUU. But ASUU, in a prompt response, said President Buhari's allegations are unfounded and noted that the registration of two new trade unions by the government for academic staff in the university system is inconsequential and poses no threat to its existence. The president also accused lecturers of deploying disguised terminologies to perpetrate corruption in the ivory towers, a development is said impinges on the fight against the menace in the educational sector. He equally accused management of tertiary institutions of not being transparent in the expenditure of internally generated revenue, asking stakeholders and the media to beam their searchlight on it. The president, however, commended the ICPC for its due diligence in investigating and prosecuting sexual harassment as an abuse of power in the country's educational institution. He called on stakeholders to demand accountability in the administration of academic institutions and for unions to interrogate the bloated personnel and recurrent expenditure of the institution. He also employed the union to work with the government to put faces and identities to names on the payroll. And now moving on, the First Lady, Mrs. Aisha Buhari, yesterday disclosed that President Muhammadu Buhari, unknown to many people, suffered post-traumatic stress disorder for many years. Following his involvement in Nigeria's civil war without rehabilitation, his overthrow as military head of state and subsequent detention for 40 months without being charged with any offense. Aisha said Buhari's loss of 3 consecutive elections further complicated the situation she was confronted with at 19, when she was married to him, and therefore became the unintended physiotherapist for his recovery. Speaking as special guest of honor at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Armed Forces Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Center, initiated by Mrs. Lucky Irabo, led Defense and Police Officers' Wives Association, the First Lady said she suffered the consequences of PTSD as an early stage in a marriage to the president. She chided politicians who lost primary election recently and had become almost inconsolable, with some making themselves unreachable by switching off their phones. Aisha stated that the PTSD Center was important to members of the armed forces and beyond, stressing that soldiers are the primary victims. The event was attended by former President of Malawi, Dr. Joyce Banda, Vice President of Liberia, Dr. Joel Owo-Taylor, Member UK House of Lords, Baroness Sandy Verma, Borno State Governor Babagana Zulum, Minister of Defense, Major General Bashir Magashi, retired, and Chief of Defense Staff, General Loki Rabo, and the service chiefs. Still in Nigeria, presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party and former Vice President of Nigeria, Atiku has commended the United Nations for its interest and sustained commitment to the growth of democratic processes in Nigeria. Atiku made the remarks when he received a delegation of the United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel, led by Ambassador Mohamed Saleh, the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations Special Representative of the Secretary General in Abuja yesterday. In addition to the United Nations envoy, the former Vice President also hosted diplomats from the South African Development Community, led by Ambassador Pule Umfotwe of Botswana, and officials of the South Korean Embassy to Nigeria, led by Ambassador Kim Yong-shae. Saleh noted that the United Nations has a special interest in ongoing events in Nigeria, but of the special influence Nigeria wields in the ECOWAS space and the continent. Away from Nigeria, the Sahel-based branch of Al-Qaeda Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin has claimed an attack on a convoy in Burkina Faso that killed over a dozen soldiers last month. The site intelligence group said yesterday. Now, Islamist militants attacked the convoy taking supplies to a town in northern Burkina Faso on September 26th, days before the West African country was hit by its second military takeover this year. Now, Janim claimed credit for the ambush and said it caused significant economic losses to the enemy and led to a shakeup in the Burkina army ranks, culminating in a military coup. Now, 11 soldiers were found dead and about 50 civilians were reported missing after the attack, the previous government stated, but an internal security document on Tuesday gave a death toll of 27 soldiers. Up next, the more headlines making the rounds on the African scene. Just stay with me. And now welcome back. We now head to the foreign scene. South Korea and the US military conducted missile drills in response to a North Korea launch of a ballistic missile over Japan as United Nations Security Council prepares to meet over what Pyongyang's longest range test. Now, nuclear-armed North Korea test fired an intermediate-range ballistic missile farther than ever before on Tuesday, sending it soaring over Japan for the first time in 5 years and prompting a warning for residents there to take cover. South Korea and American troops fired a volley of missiles into the sea in response, South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff said on Wednesday, and the Allies earlier staged a bombing drill with fighter jets in the Yellow Sea. The military separately confirmed that a South Korean Yeonmi-2 missile failed shortly after the launch and crashed during the drill, but that no one was hurt. Now, footage shared on social media by nearby residents showed smoke and flames rising from the military base. The fire was caused by burning rockets, propellant, and although the missile carried a warhead, it did not explode, the South Korean military said, and also apologized for causing residents to worry. And now moving on, President Volodymyr Zelensky said Ukraine's military had made major rapid advances against Russian forces in the past week, taking back dozens of towns and regions in the south and east that Russia has declared annexed. Now, Russia moved to annex those regions after holding what it called referendums over several days from September 23rd, votes that were denounced by Kyiv and Western governments as illegal and coercive. The Russian President Vladimir Putin proclaimed that annexation last Friday. Zelensky named 8 small towns in Kherson in the south as recently having been recaptured, although the statement could not be independently verified. Russian forces in the Donetsk and Kherson region have been forced to retreat in recent days and appear to be struggling to halt an increasingly Western-equipped Ukrainian army. Now, still on the foreign scene, former President Donald Trump asked the U.S. Supreme Court to intervene in his fight with the Justice Department over classified documents seized from his Florida home as part of a criminal investigation into his handling of government records. Trump filed an emergency request asking the justice to block parts of a lower court ruling that prevented an independent arbitral request by Trump, known as a special master for vetting more than 100 documents marked as classified that were among 11,000 records seized by FBI agents at the Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach on August 8th. The Atlanta-based 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals on September 24th repudiated a decision by U.S. District Judge Allen Cannon, who temporarily barred the department from examining the seized classified documents until the special master had weeded out any that could be deemed privileged and withheld from investigators. Justice Clarence Thomas, who is assigned to assess emergency appeals from the 11th Circuit, late on Tuesday requested a response from the Justice Department by October 11th. We'll go on a short break now, and when we come back, it's top headlines from the sports scene. Just stay with me. And now welcome back. Top headlines making the rounds on the sports scene. And that concludes the news update on AFRICUNIA television. Do follow all our social media platforms on Jointum, Pangram.ct, Instagram, Facebook, and on Twitter in that respective order. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can also link us up on www.africunia.tv to stay up to date and connected to our news and subsequent programs. Once again, I am Deborah Ezeh. Bye for now.